Hey everyone, I hope all of you are doing well and welcome back to Kayan Al-Bashar, where today we actually don't have any animals. We are not going to be building any habitats today. We are going to build the entrance to the inner courtyard, or the Grand Court as I've called it, of the Royal Palace of Bashar, however. So it's still going to be quite an impressive build because of course it's the entrance to the Royal Palace. It should be impressive. And there's going to be a real life reference for this build and a non-real life version, a video game which actually isn't Assassin's Creed for one part of today's build. A non-Assassin's Creed inspired build is kind of a miracle. But anyway, so the real life inspiration for the gate that we're starting with and some other parts of the build, and actually most parts of the Royal Palace of Bashar, are going to be inspired by the Alhambra of Spain. So the gate that we're building right now is actually taken from the Gate of Wine. Yes, that's an actual name of a gate of the Alhambra, and I'm actually going to call the gate that we're building also the Gate of Wine because I also want to build a vineyard outside of the palace. But the Gate of Wine served as the inspiration for the gate that we're building right now, which provided some issues and some things to overcome. First of all, it's a horseshoe gate, or at least the Gate of Wine in real life is a horseshoe gate, or at least a horseshoe arched gate, which for me is for some reason the most annoying arch to build, because, well, you can obviously see already how a horseshoe arch looks. It basically looks like a horseshoe. Sometimes there's a pointy bit at the top, sometimes there's not. But usually it sort of slopes straight when you go down the arch. And I don't have this like perfectionistic thing going on with any other arch. But if the flow of a horseshoe arch for me isn't completely correct, then I will just completely like batter myself against the wall for it, because it needs to be completely perfect. Again, I don't really have this kind of thing going on with any other arch. Whenever it's a horseshoe arch, or actually just a horseshoe shape, then I just completely go for it, just go insane trying to make the flow of the actual arch completely correct and perfect. Again, don't have this with any other arch. I still don't know why I have this with the horseshoe arch. But then there was another problem actually for this gate, or at least a thing that I needed to overcome, because the actual real life Gate of Wine is painted. So the actual arch of the Gate of Wine in real life is red, and then the surrounding, well, in the real life version it's artwork, and in game it's just plaster, because I could already see my PC crying if I wanted to make it, the artwork in game. So in game, the what is now plaster, which in real life is artwork, is blue. So then you had a red arch and a blue, well, basically wall surrounding it. And I did not want to use those colors because they haven't appeared yet in the Royal Palace of Bashar, so it would be a kind of an odd thing to suddenly appear right now. So I used the, what I call the national colors of Kayan Al-Bashar, which is gold and this dark green. And at first I made a mistake by making the surrounding wall yellow and then the actual arch green. Yeah, don't do that. Or at least don't do that if you don't want to have a gate that is basically the Gate of Mustard. Yeah, for some reason it just reminded me of mustard. And I don't know why, because I personally don't like mustard. But this gate just reminded me of mustard when it had this green arch and then yellow wall. So in a little bit I do invert that, just because it works out a little bit better and doesn't remind me of mustard when the wall is green and the arch is, well, actually not even the yellow that I used previously. It's sort of more this faded yellow gold-ish tone. Let's just give this as a tip, maybe. Don't make the actual arch a darker color than the surrounding walls. It will very much stand out. And if the surrounding wall is yellow, it reminds me of mustard. Don't know why. Like, it's not just that the color reminds me of mustard, it's just the combination with the green wall that it, or the green arch, that it reminded me of mustard. But anyway, I also wanted to quickly talk about something else, which is kind of important, which is the renovation series that I was planning. So in the previous video, I, let's face it, didn't really have a clue on how to do like submissions and such. But since then, I have actually made up a Google form. So it should be from now on actually in every description of the video and in the about page on the channel. But let's just say it will probably make submissions a lot easier to find, because, well, the form is in the description of every video going forward, or, well, until the series ends. But it should be easier, and it allowed me to do some things. First of all, well, let's just run through the entire form. So it's not a long form, I can assure you that. I did not want to make you spend like 20 minutes. It's basically, you can give your name, also gave the option to remain anonymous. So if you don't want to be like named in a video, then you can just leave that, well, line blank. Then a link to the workshop item, which probably is a little bit like obvious, like otherwise I wouldn't be able to find what you want me to renovate. And then it's just like give like just say what the build is. So is the habitat, or is it a building? Because I do think it would be fun to have habitats and buildings, because let's just say I think more known for buildings than habitats actually. I mean, today's episode is a bit of a clear example of that I sometimes just don't really care about the animals. But yeah, you can send in a habitat and a building, and actually anything in between. You can basically send in anything. But then also, and this is the last part, so quickly to round off that habitat slash other thing, basically just you scroll to a sort of list of like habitat, building, or other. And then the last thing, which is actually the part of the form that I'm most happy with, because you can give preferences. So if you want a certain style, I can't assure you that I will stick to that style, because I'm a squirrel. If I get something in my head, I need to do it. But you can give like a preference of like a style that you want to do, or want me to try and renovate your building with. And then this is the funnest thing about the preferences, you can give a budget. Yeah, let's face it, a lot of the buildings in Kayan Al-Bashar and Isla Pacifica will basically bankrupt your zoo if you played with any sort of money. So it would be a fun challenge for me to actually build with a budget in mind. Of course, if I build or renovate something and think like, alright, if I just add a little bit more, like it will make it more expensive, but it will look 10 times better, or at least it will improve the renovation 10 times better, then I will probably not stick to this budget as much. But it would be a fun challenge if you want to like use the build in franchise modes, that it doesn't bankrupt your zoo. I think is a fun addition to the just entire submission process. So it should be now pretty easy to find that form, because again, it's in the description of every video going forward and in the about section of the channel. So yeah, I still sometimes worry about it being a slightly narcissistic series, but then you guys have since said that if I approach it right, it isn't. So took a little bit of the worry away, but I think I will always worry about such things. I mean, I think I worry about that with everything that I built. That's like, am I like now shoving a build in your face, or is this okay? Let's just say the start of the channel was really a lot about that. Like, am I shoving a build in your face, or is it like a good enough build to actually be shoved? Sometimes let's just say I can't actually watch these first videos that I make. I think I have already said that, but just the general anxiety that I just hear in my voice then, just no. So yeah, let's just get back to that renovation thing. So should be easy to find now, and should be easy to fill out. It probably is going to take like 5 minutes to fill that out. That's basically it when it comes to like the renovation part. So again, I think I say this too many times, but I just want to make sure that you guys can find it if you want to send anything in. but it is in the description of every video and it should be on the about section of the channel. And I hope it also works, because let's just say I have zero knowledge when it comes to making these things. So yeah, this is basically just a jump in the deep for me as well. Going into the actual build and well, I do consider the renovation talk a little, well, necessary and of course useful. Let's talk about the build again. So I did not want the actual gates, which I still somewhat see it as the gate of mustard, but it should be the gate of wine. But I did not want the gate to overshadow the entire, well, island that it sits upon, but also just the entire area that it surrounds, or is in its surroundings. Because, well, it shouldn't be, or at least I didn't feel like this area would need or would want a gate that completely overshadows everything. Because, well, first of all, the gate, of course, is inspired by the Gate of Wine in the Alhambra. But the Alhambra is, well, when you look at the way the Alhambra is built, it's all very like delicate, very just inviting. Nothing is really intimidating, or at least the intimidation factor is really tiny with the Alhambra. So I wanted to keep that in with the Royal Palace of Bashar. So I needed to have a build to make it sort of even out. So I added 2 wings to the actual gate. And I'm only going to build one of them, but basically the other side is the mirrored version of this wing. But yes, I did include another horseshoe arch just because otherwise, yeah, this is just a general tip to make buildings blend together. Use similar building techniques. So if you add a horseshoe arch in one building and you have a building next to it, you might consider adding a horseshoe arch, even though it pains me. I'm really like, for some reason, I'm now hoping that the first, well, not the first thing because I've already started renovating something, but that one of the things that you guys now sent in for renovation is like a building full of horseshoe arches. That would be a fun thing, because that would just be truly traumatizing for me. Again, it's not that I like dislike you guys or something for it, it's just that my brain will start to dislike me. So yeah, horseshoe arches. But yeah, just general tip when you want to blend buildings. Use similar building techniques, or at least like use pieces that you use in the building next to it, so that it sort of blends together, because it's not like a very like abrupt change in building styles. But yeah, basically these wings are actually larger or taller than the actual gate itself. And this is because, well, first of all, I already said it, I wanted to even out this build, so that it's not that the gate completely overshadows everything. And I did make sure that the wings aren't as decorated as the actual gate, or at least they didn't look as decorated. So that in a way evens it out so that the wings don't overshadow the gate. So it's kind of this perfect balance of like, it feels like one building. And yes, the gate is still like the point of view, or like the focal point of the build, but it's not like you kind of forget that everything next to it exists. So that's basically what I wanted to make sure to have with this build. It's a little bit of a tricky thing to make. Also, this is one thing that I did not think I would do, but I actually used a a door of the South America pack for this wing, just because there's like a little bit of like that lattice work, but also a little bit of like, it looks just like wood sculpture, like a little bit of like that. So yeah, I did originally thought like, oh, I would need to use that Indian door, but in the end I just went with this door just because, well, first of all, if you have the pieces, use them. Yeah, the first build actually for the renovation series, I actually needed to make sure that it was all the base game. I'm not going to say much more than that. Well, actually, first renovation that I did isn't actually one thing that you guys sent in, it's a frontier build. That's all I'm going to say, now for sure. But anyway, back to the actual build. So yeah, I still am slightly traumatized by those horseshoe arches, but I do think it works out really well. I actually don't know for sure if like other arches besides the Gate of Wine in the Alhambra, well, most of the gates have a horseshoe arch, but the other arches in the like gardens of the Alhambra, I don't actually know if they are horseshoe arches. I also don't know if this is like the completely correct term. I just know that I call them horseshoe arches because they look like a horseshoe. I do have like a slight feeling that it is a horseshoe arch, but whenever it comes to like architectural terms, I'm never sure. I always think like, I could be completely wrong, but then in the end, I also slightly don't care. This is something that continuously amazes me whenever someone says this, but I have had a few comments saying like, oh, you are very good in English, and I'm like, really? Because I have spent an entire episode forgetting the word impressive. There are a lot of times where just randomly in a commentary, or actually just even in normal life, I just blank on a word. Like for the whole day, and then the next day I will feel like an idiot for forgetting that word, because most of the time it's like a very usual everyday word. But I sometimes just completely blank, and then I'm just thinking like, you think I have good English? I mean, I think it's a great compliment, but is it true? I never really think that I have good English. It's just like, yeah, I'm winging this. But then it should probably also maybe help if I ever start scripting these videos, but then that takes away the fun of it. Or at least for me, it takes away the fun, because I like just, you know, going off rambling, not knowing where I will end up. How many of you guys actually stay here for the rambles? That's something I did want to ask. How many of you, like, maybe came for the builds and stayed for the rambles? I do. Yeah, if I'm correct, Tara actually said that she stays for the rambles or personality. Again, still don't know how the good English somehow came to be, but I take it. But now we go to the Court of Llamas. Because, well, in the original Court of Lions in the Alhambra, of course, the name already says it, it's lions. In Kayan Al-Bashar, it's the Court of Llamas. Because we have golden llama statues, and I will be damned if I don't use any statue that is gold. Because, actually, are squirrels attracted to shiny things? Because I might be. And that's not, maybe not the best thing, but yeah, I wanted to use the golden llama statues, and also the in-game lion statues. They're a little bit too large. They would make this fountain a little bit too big, and the golden llamas kind of work perfectly for this. They also have this sort of grumpy look, which I always like. I mean, kind of reminds me of old man Poisonblade, which is me in the morning. Yeah, I do actually answer comments in the morning, which maybe I shouldn't do, because before 10 AM, you should just not talk to me. I'm not a morning person. That's just all I can say about that. But yeah, the Court of Llamas, because why not have golden llama statues? I mean, we already have golden floor tiles. I don't think golden llama statues are that out of concept for the actual Royal Palace of Bashar. And now we are going to the floating carpet bridges, because this is actually where the reference from Guild Wars 2 comes from. Guild Wars 2, I think I've already said this, but then I have the mind of a goldfish, so I am also wondering how many times I've repeated myself in episodes going so far. But Guild Wars, let's just say it's a game that I used to play a lot. I really want to actually go back into it. But the region of Fabi, which is basically well, it's sort of the same as Kayan Al-Bashar, besides the floating part. Actually, they do have floating buildings, so maybe a little bit like Kayan Al-Bashar. But yeah, anyone of you guys who knows Guild Wars Nightfall actually, and Guild Wars 2 Path of Fire, might know the region of Fabi, and this is where these floating carpet bridges come from. They are also probably the least safe bridges in Kayan Al-Bashar. Well, let's just say they're also one of the few bridges that Kayan Al-Bashar actually has that are built up. But yeah, there's no railings or carpet, so there's no railing on these bridges as well. But I wanted to have these here just because, first of all, they bring this necessary pop of color in the actual royal palace. Because so far most of the buildings have been like brown or beiges, For some reason, the color beige is just my favorite color to build with for some reason. But I wanted to have these so that there's a pop of color, there's a little bit of that fantasy feel, because for everyone who doesn't know like the reference to Gold Rush 2 Vabi or Gold Rush 1 Vabi, they see this and might think Aladdin, because that's, I think, the most, well, relevant or just the easiest reference image for floating carpets. But anyway, that's actually it for today's video. So again, I want to quickly remind you guys that the form to submit anything for renovation is in the description of this video and should be in the description of every video going forward. And it's in the about section of the channel. So if you can't find the form to submit anything for renovation, it should be there. But anyway, I hope you all have an amazing day. There's again not going to be a tour of the build because it's a little bit too small and it's a part of a larger build. But there's going to be some cinematic views. So again, have an amazing day. Take care of yourself and of others. And just stay safe in these times. And just have an amazing day. Bye bye.